everyone, it's Max, and today I am here with my November wrap-up. Now, in November, I tried to make it a nonfiction November, and it was a little bit of a hit or miss. I think just reading a bunch of nonfiction in 1 month is not for me. But not in the way that I got sick of nonfiction. I just I don't know, I didn't love a lot of them. But I did successfully complete 8 nonfiction novels, and then 2 more novels I'm going to be talking about that are sci-fi. Both of them are sci-fi. I did read 2 more books, but they are part of a secret TBR, so I'm not going to talk about them here. Now, the first book I'm going to talk about is Mythos by Stephen Fry. And this just kind of tells a bunch of myths. Greek myths, and it was good. I mean, if you don't know much about Greek myths and mythology, this is definitely a great place to start. I just it kind of felt a little all over the place. It started with the beginning of the world, but it didn't seem like he had a good idea of where to go and where to stop, because it just kind of ended in a really random place, and it just felt a little all over the place. But I did really enjoy it, and I think it's a great place to start if you don't know much about Greek mythology, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I finished was also Heroes by Stephen Fry, which tells the stories of particular Greek heroes not mentioned in Mythos. And this was better. It followed very, the major heroes in Greek mythology, which then ended right before Troy, which makes sense because his third book was Troy, which followed the beginning and fall, the creation and fall of Troy. And that one is my favorite. I keep looking over here because it's right there, but it is my favorite out of these 3 books. The next one is about Odysseus and the Odyssey, which I'm really pumped about. It's my favorite book of all time. I'm ready for it. But overall, I did enjoy this, and I also gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next week I had kind of followed a science week, where the first book I read was Packing for Mars by Mary Roach, which I really, really loved. I thought she did a great job. I kind of just talk about random things that you don't really think about when you think of space travel, and also things that NASA is never going to actually talk about with people, and that's stuff like poop and how they vet people and everything. And it was just a really, really interesting story, and what she talked about really was fascinating in the era of space travel and what people actually had to go through. The next, and then I gave that a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. I can't remember who it's by. I loved this. It catalogs dinosaurs, right? It was so good. I think he did a great job. It follows a cohesive timeline and storyline, and he's also a very, very prolific archaeologist. He has discovered 15 dinosaur species, and he related it back to his research and his life, and he didn't take himself too seriously, which was really nice. I had a great time reading it, and just, I knew that obviously the asteroid that hit Earth had to be big and had to be obviously catastrophic, but I just didn't quite realize the stats until he laid it out, and it's crazy. I equate it to what's gonna happen once Yellowstone goes, because I live I don't know, an hour and something away from the volcano. So I'm gonna be dead immediately, like all dinosaurs in North America. And people are just gonna have to face those ramifications when Yellowstone goes. And it's just gonna be kind of crazy. But it was phenomenal, so great, so easy, so accessible, and I also gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last book I read for Science Week that I actually ended up DNFing was The Ice Pick Surgeon. And this just, I don't know, again, it didn't follow much of a cohesive storyline. It kind of was just all over the place. It was snippets of times that scientists kind of, were a little morally gray in their pursuit of science and medicine, but it just it was just boring. It was kind of okay, some of them were bad, but on the whole I was and why is this really that morally gray? And it just kind of felt like they were grasping at straws sometimes. So I did DNF it, and I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Ultimate Evil: The Search for the Sons of Sam by Maury Terry. And this is a true story about this this detectives or journalists, no, detectives search for this cult, the Son of Sam. At the beginning I was really into into it. It really gripped me. It was really fascinating, but it kind of declined as the book went on until the end, where I was like, oh my gosh, like, let me be done with this. I was just sick of it and I was ready to be done. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars because I did think it was interesting. I do want to watch the Netflix show. I haven't yet, but I want to. But overall, it was just a little disappointing, and it definitely did not need to be this long. The next book I tried to read this month, I don't know if it's quite a disappointment because I knew I was either going to love it or hate it. And I did fall into that latter category, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. The writing in this was, I hated it. It was so all over the place. It was very stream of conscious. It didn't describe anything. It jumped all over the place. I was so confused. And this follows Thomas Cromwell, who was the main advisor to Henry VIII for many, many years. And he was very much involved in the Anne Boleyn scandal, I guess. And then he ended up losing his life after Anna of Cleves, I believe. Or Catherine Howard, Anne's cousin. And it was just all over the place. It just didn't really make sense. It was just a hodgepodge jumbled thing that was just so confusing to read. And I just couldn't get through it. I was lost and I was just slogging through it. So I have DNF'd it, which is really unfortunate because I had hoped to love Wolf Hall, but I also had set myself up like knowing that I might not like it, and I just didn't. So I did read a good chunk of it. So I guess I'd probably give it again a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read for Nonfiction November was Catherine Parr, The Sixth Wife by Alison Weir. This is the 6th and last book in Alison Weir's 6 Tudor Queen series, which I love. Each book follows a different wife of Henry VIII. Catherine Parr is my favorite wife and the last wife, and I wrote my university senior script thesis on her, and I really enjoyed this. The last bit annoyed me, but that's Catherine Parr. It's not Alison Weir's fault, and I just ended up really enjoying it. I loved most of it. The last, like, after Henry dies, it did go a little downhill for me, but overall I did just really love it, and I thought this was a great retelling of Catherine Parr's life, and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last nonfiction book I'm going to talk about is The Romanovs by Simon Sebag Montefiore, and this follows the Romanovs from the start of their reign to the end, and I really enjoyed it. I think he did a great job at cataloging all of the czars and czarinas and everything that happened, and making the fall of the Romanovs understandable, but also I kind of wish that he showed more of like why the Romanovs were so bad and needed to be toppled, because I don't think we got much of that. And I know we were following the rulers, so like of course the rulers didn't think that, but I wanted more of like why Nicholas II was so awful and why he had to be overthrown, because by the end of it I was like, knowing what came next with Stalin and Lenin and everything, I was like, it gets much worse. And so it was hard to like, and I know you're not supposed to be rooting for anyone particularly, it's nonfiction, like it's just this is what happened, but it kind of like, it was just like, okay, like yikes. Like I didn't understand why they decided to overthrow Nicholas II. And I wish I had. I wish it had gone over how terrible life was under Nicholas II. But I know he kind of tried to, but it just didn't really hit that mark for me. But overall, I did give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Just an awesome telling of the Romanov line. All right, and then I have 2 more books to talk about. One is a novella by Brandon Sanderson called Read On. It is the 2nd novella you have to read before Cytonic, the 3rd book in the Skyward series. Now, I hate when authors make a novella something you have to read to understand the next book, and he has started to do that, and I don't like it. I really don't like it. And yeah, there's so much important stuff that happens in that novella that like you really do have to read it, and I really hate that. I'm like, why do you have to like put it either in the 2nd book, like we only follow Spensa in the 2nd book, make it so we follow all these characters, give us more points of view, or make it part of the beginning of Cytonic. Like, why do you have almost 200 pages of really necessary information in a novella? I hate that. I hate it. It just feels like a cash grab to me, and I'm just really unimpressed with that choice. So I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars, even though it was good and like I'm excited to see what happens next. I wanted it part of a real book. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is Doomsday Book by Connie Willis. And this takes place in the future where time travel is a thing, and our main character, Kivrin, is in Oxford, and she really wants to travel to Dark Ages medieval England. And she finally gets the okay to do it, so we follow her in the past, and also not her advisor, but a guy who's been teaching her about medieval England in the present / future. And he really didn't want her to go, and she went, and it ends up something goes wrong, and she is trapped in the wrong time period, because she is supposed to be in England 28 years before the Black Plague hits, but I think everyone knows what's gonna happen. I really enjoyed this. I wish Kivrin got out of this small village and explored England more. She really stays in this one village, basically in this one manor, and I wish we got more of medieval England, because and then the present day timeline follows an outbreak of a new influenza strain, which, hello, we get that. And I just that was I mean, it was interesting, but also now that we're living in a time where a plague is basically going around, the fact that they were able to find a vaccine and a treatment for this in the present timeline was they found it within days, and I was just I don't think so. I don't think that's how it works. And it just felt a little I was they would never be able to get it that quickly. And I know it's for storytelling purposes, but it just wouldn't happen. So because of those two things, I end up giving this a 4.25, 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, everyone, that's it for my November wrap up. Was it a success? I don't know. I don't know if we'd consider it a success. It's one of my worst quantity-wise reading months in a little bit, and also kind of quality-wise. But overall, I had a good time. Probably won't do this again. But I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye.